All right, so I know there's a phenomenon, and I know people here have said they've seen it in the past. The way that I feel mine is different is that what I saw was a man in an Easter bunny costume. Not a human, rabbit hybrid, or the shadow form of an Easter bunny creature. The whole thing lasted 5 seconds. I woke up in bed, saw a man in an Easter bunny costume standing over my bed staring at me. I screamed. I pulled the covers over my head, knowing I couldn't run, and my parents barged in asking what happened. When they walked in the room, I peeked out, and it was only the two of them standing near my bed. Has anyone else seen the man in costume Easter bunny? It obviously was not my parents, and my dad was a little too straight-laced and jaded to just dress up like him and walk into my room at night. Maybe it was a dream, but I can honestly say it felt completely real, and I do not remember being asleep. So back when I was around 7 or 8 years old, I recall a very vivid memory of seeing what looked like a 6 or 7 foot Easter bunny shadow thing in the hallway after getting up to go to the bathroom. At the time, I assumed it was the Easter bunny and I wanted to go help, but something told me to move on and go to my parents' room. This shadow creature was big, 6 to 7 feet, while being hunched over and holding a basket. I assumed full of Easter eggs, but I couldn't tell, and the entire entity was emitting no color. I asked my parents about it, but both my parents were in their room, and they wouldn't have hired an Easter bunny to hang out in the house before they even got up. Fast forward to today, my friend I met only 4 years ago starts talking about this experience he had when he was younger, and saw the Easter bunny with his sister, saying where it was a 7-foot bunny creature thing holding a basket standing completely still and down the hall in their house. I had never talked to him about this, but he was able to describe it just as I had. He then asked his sister if she recalled that time as well. She did, but not as well, since she was younger than him. I have a story. It isn't mine, but it happened to my uncle. He used to tell this story when we went camping, and it scared the lights out of me every time I heard it. We live in Utah, and my Uncle Mark went on a mission at 19. They sent him to an Indian reservation in Arizona. They paired him up with a companion named Carl. When they first got there, there was a huge rift with the locals on the reservation with them being there. They didn't want my uncle and Carl staying on the reservation grounds. Eventually, they came to a compromise that they would stay on the outskirts in a trailer. This reservation wasn't very big and was located next to a heavily wooded area. The first night, they were trying to sleep when all of a sudden, their trailer started to shake violently back and forth. Startled and not sure what was happening, they climbed under their table for cover. Mark could distinctively hear someone pushing it from both sides of the trailer, like a group of people. After about 5 minutes, it stopped. That next day, they made rounds on the reservation and were talking to the locals. Carl made a comment to one of the families that their trailer was shaking that night before. The family got very quiet and then told them they had to leave. They thought it was strange but didn't think much of it. The next night, it happened again. They awoke to their trailer shaking back and forth. Again, they climbed under the table until it stopped. This went on for 2 more nights. Anytime they tried to talk to anyone about it, they got quiet and told them to leave. Mark started thinking that, due to the tension of their arrival, the locals were doing this to scare them off the reservation. They then go into a convenience store, and they were talking together about how frustrated they were with the situation. The clerk overheard and said, "They can't talk about it. It's forbidden." Confused, they ask him, "Can't talk about what?" The guy continues to tell them about the skinwalkers. He says they are evil demons that were once Native American witches. If they talk about it, the skinwalkers will come for their souls. They just walked out of there baffled. They thought it was another scare tactic. So that night, when the shaking started again, my uncle decided to be brave and confront them. He went to the trailer door, flew it open, and yelled, "Hey!" When he did that, he saw these 3 animals run off. 2 were a wolf, and 1 was a bear. But they looked strange, almost with human features. As he watched them run towards the trees, all 3 stood up on 2 legs and walked slowly towards the trees, making a human cackling laugh. It scared him so bad that they called their mission president that next morning and asked to be moved. They were relocated that day. For a year, nothing happened. One day, they announced that Carl was being relocated to another city and Mark was getting a new companion, Jimmy. They had to drive for about an hour to pick Jimmy up from the airport. The road they traveled went through the boundaries of the reservation. They arrived at about 8 p.m. and picked up Jimmy. The mission president tells Jimmy, "We are driving through a dangerous area at night, so we can't make any stops. If you need to use the restroom, you need to go now." Jimmy says, "I am fine." The mission president gets serious enough to even freak out Mark. "I am not kidding, go do your business." Jimmy was insistent he was fine. So they hit the road. As they were about 30 minutes into the drive, they were going through the area of the reservation boundaries. Jimmy starts complaining that he needed to pee badly. The mission president says, "We can't stop here. You'll have to hold it." Jimmy keeps going on, "I really can't hold it." So the mission president stops the car and says, "Okay, but you will do your business next to the door, and if I say get into the car, you better get into the car fast." With a look of confusion, Jimmy says, "All right," opens the door and starts to do his business. In about 5 seconds, the mission president says nothing and just yanks Jimmy into the car and floors it. Jimmy and Mark start freaking out. What is going on? The mission president says nothing and just increases his speed. All of a sudden, Mark sees something next to the car to his right. A giant wolf-looking man was running on 2 feet next to the car. Mark looked at the speedometer. They were going over 60 miles an hour and still increasing. The wolf creature kept right next to the car for 10 minutes until it finally took off into the trees. Shaking, Jimmy gets out of the car when they arrive and says, "What did I just see?" The mission president looked at him and says only one thing. "Next time I tell you to take care of your business, you take care of your business." So, the other story I am going to tell you happened in South Carolina. We have extended family out there. My mother and I went to visit, and I honestly cannot remember how old I was. Somewhere between 8 and 11 is the closest I can get. Anyway, they lived in a small town called Manning, South Carolina. We had spent the day visiting like you do when you see family you haven't seen in forever, and I remember that their house was not very big. But it was a big family. Later that evening, I was in one of the bedrooms, lying on a pallet-made bed on the floor, and I could hear the adults in the living room talking. As I lay there, trying to fall asleep, I was looking out the window. As I watched, a shadow came across the window, almost like something was standing there, but it was very big. I watched it for a while, and it just stayed still like it was looking in the window. I got up to see what it was. As I moved toward the window, it started backing up. It did not look like a man to me. It did not look like a bear. It looked like something entirely different. It was extremely tall and extremely hairy and stood on 2 legs. When I saw it, I hollered out, and my cousin Paul came into the room. I told him what I had seen, and all the men in the house ran outside and started chasing this thing into the woods. There were a couple shots fired, but nobody hit anything. The next morning, when we went outside to see what we could see, there were 2 indentations in the ground right under the window where the thing had stood. There were no discernible toes that we could see, but I'm pretty sure I saw a Sasquatch. This was about 30 years ago, about 1 a.m. near Zephyr, Texas. I was casually road hunting in Texas, mainly with my buddy listening to the radio with him driving. As we slowed for a fork in the remote dirt road, I saw something running at the car from my side ride, where the light and dark met. I was too shocked to say anything or shoot. I was the definition of deer in headlights. He glanced over and saw it, gunned the engine, and it missed its intercept with us. I'd guess it was the size of a wolf, short hair, shaped kind of like a hyena, fast like a cheetah, and had the run mechanics like a jackrabbit. No idea what it was. I joke it was my chupacabra sighting, as I think what it could reasonably be, I think kangaroo or greyhound, most likely a trick of the imagination, but my friend saw it too. More than anything, I just wish I had an explanation for it. Regardless, it gave us a good spook.